Hi there. In this part of the theory, we're going to delve into the idea of message balance. So, and how modern and ancient medicines represent this. In this lecture, we'll turn to the East, Eastern medicine, and for thousands of years, uh, it appears that in Chinese medicine, there's the concept of the qi, and in many cases the traditional medicine is based on remedies, based on herbs and various extracts of different things, which are prescribed by the doctor. Unlike Western medicine, which is more clinical, the Eastern medicine focuses on achieving balance within the being. So let's apply that idea to um, to this theory. So, in this theory, a human being has a physicality, a body, or any kind of a being. There's some kind of external and internal messaging. There's some kind of goal-based system for the being. Simple goals might be just eat well, things like that, um, and so on. And in the brain, and then all those messages get channels into the brain, and they go into what I call the system consciousness. And the idea there is the messages all kind of get funneled into a certain part of the brain where they get processed, and as I've shown in the diagrams already, they get rerouted around the brain in various ways. Now, if one thinks of a living being sort of an engine of messages flowing through a body, flowing through a physical being, uh, you can imagine that if things go wrong, basically the messaging can become unbalanced. So I talked about autism, and I talked about um, certain illnesses, and I'll talk more about this later. But the basic idea is, for say autism, you may find there's some problem in the brain, an immature section in the brain, where the messaging isn't just getting processed correctly, and maybe the uh, the apps, or the genetic code hasn't fully established itself, and it causes a great deal of distress um, to the person with this problem. So if we imagine we have a reasonably healthy body, but we're experiencing some difficulties, we can start to imagine a model where messages flow around the body from the physical into the virtual, and these two need to be in sync with each other. They need to be in harmony. This is kind of the idea of the Eastern medicines, and there are herbs, and there are different medicinal remedies you can take to help make your body become more in harmony with itself. So, what is trying to be in harmony with what, according to this theory? In this theory, um, uh, what we're trying to do is achieve this Taoist idea, which is the physical and the virtual. So, if one looks at this diagram, which is an ancient diagram, and it's been around much longer than I have been, and it will be around much longer than I will ever be. But this is the idea. If you interpret this in pi space, this is the physical body, and this is the 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 virtual body, and those dots you could interpret to be maybe the messaging, right? So in other words, they need to be in balance with each other, in harmony. Yeah, if you get the messages in, they need to flow through your physical body into your virtual, and then from your virtual into your physical. So think of the the two opposing pieces equally balanced with each other, and the dots as messages flowing from one to the other. That's the way you could interpret this diagram in this thinking machine design. So if you see an android, you think, are the messages balanced? Is the physical form in balance with the virtual form? And then in Eastern and Chinese medicine, they'll come to you, and they'll take parts of your body, like your hand, and they'll examine them, and they'll do various tests, and basically they're testing the messaging in your body, and they're looking for telltale signs that there's problems. So the remedies are basically kind of like various chemicals which when go into your body affect the signaling in your body. And they've experimented with this over centuries, and they've basically perfected it into this Eastern style medicine as opposed to the Western style medicine, which is much more clinical, and based on the idea of science. It doesn't. They don't think in the West of balancing messages through a body. They think of a chemical applied to a particular region of the body to affect some some action. Whereas with the Eastern medicines, it's more about the flow through the body, the movement. So you see a lot of morning exercises are about moving the body, controlling the breathing, and also with visualizing things. So it's the virtual and the physical. So what people are doing in these cases is trying to synchronize their virtual self with their physical self. So that's why they do that according to this theory. So this is what Tai Chi is, virtual and physical. So pretty important ideas. So let's just say that's my interpretation. That they may, if you talk to someone who deals in Eastern medicine, they may not agree with my interpretation, but that's my interpretation based on the theory I have. And then we move on to the kind of more intriguing, more fun side of the idea, which is okay. So we have, and I've talked about this already, acupuncture points. So basically, so the idea is that a body has pressure points, and that somehow the body has mapped pressure points to message centers, and and over the centuries, the Chinese have basically figured this out, and and they've done it from what I can see through trial and error, and they've documented it, and they've had people come in with various ailments, and they can basically map a point in your body to an ailment, and they can say if they apply pressure with their needles at a certain point in your body, they can help alleviate a particular ailment. Now, I think the key thing to know here about this idea is, so you have a being that has messaging in it, and then you have a being with an ailment, pain or whatever, discomfort or whatever of some kind. Invariably, it looks, according to this idea, the according to this idea, the acupuncture will provide relief. So let's say you have a stomach problem, this will probably maybe help with relieve that problem, but it won't. Well, unlike the Western medicine, which targets your stomach, um, this approach, according to this theory, is targeting your brain. Excuse me, and it will help you deal with the discomfort that your brain is receiving from your stomach, and so on. And then later, the brain can then produce its own chemicals to deal with the stomach internally. So there's fascinating documents out there, and here's one of them. This is basically what the Chinese have basically figured out, and they have it mapped into these amazing diagrams where they show all these points in one's body deal with the various ailments that one has. So I guess if you take this diagram or any diagram, um, if you take any diagram like this, and I'm sure you can find one in textbooks somewhere, um, the way to interpret this diagram according to this theory um, uh, is these points are actually message points. Think of them in this theory as message points. So if you apply a pressure to a body at a certain point, messages are then generated in the nerve endings which go into your brain, and then are those messages then end up relating to these other issues. So it's a related messaging thing, where you can override maybe a pain message from, say, another part of your body by stimulating a message point in another part of your body. But just think of it as a kind of an interface that our bodies have, a kind of almost like a hidden interface, designed at a genetic level that the Chinese have figured out, and it's to do with the messaging of the body, and it's a completely um, good idea in terms of the theory. So, if you take an Android, it makes sense that an Android should have some kind of messaging protocols which can override other messaging protocols. I don't know about an Android having these individual points on the body the way a human does, but I do think it makes sense that an Android should have should have the ability to override another message. So, for example, as I said before, if you have a faulty device within an Android and it's maybe causing some trouble, I mean, you might say, I want to switch it off. You disable it, but you might say, well, we don't want to switch it off because it's kind of working but not working great, and it's causing the Android some confusion. So what you can say is, okay, well, we can generate these other message types which will override them, and then we'll end up in a situation where the Android can function better with the other piece, the other device mostly functioning. So that's the idea, and that's all I really want to say in this lecture. Just, it's a really important point, and you can see even in human beings' hands the various points that we have, and how they map to different parts of the body. So again, it's message. It's a messaging situation. The hands are not actually connected to that part of the body. It's actually the messages that are generated go into the brain, and then the brain has an association to that other part of the body where the messaging comes in from there, and that's how it works. And that's all I wanted to say for this lecture. Later, I'm going to talk about a variety of diseases and pairing of messages and things like that, and what these things show us. Thanks.